Hello and welcome to episode 13 of Leadership Trademarked podcast. We are continuing with the theme of employee engagement, and today we are absolutely thrilled to have with us a truly inspired leader, Josie Scioli. Josie has had an impressive career in public service where she led transformative initiatives, and she's known for her relentless focus on customer service and driving change. Josie has a rich leadership journey spanning from both public and private sectors and was recognized in 2021 as Canada's most powerful women by the Women's Executive Network. This is a true testament to her visionary leadership and dedication to community. In today's episode, let's explore the art of empowering employees, something that I know Josie has championed throughout her career. Hi, I'm Sylvia Fraser. I'm the executive producer and host of the Leadership Trademarked podcast. And with me today, we have Rosalind Kingsmill, the executive coach and host, Leslie Riley, our strategic director and host, and last and not least, Finley Gain, our technology producer. Let's dive in. Now, Josie, you and I have worked together for over 10 years now. And I know you very well, and I learned so much from you, especially when it comes to employee engagement. How do you think employee engagement affects public service as a whole? And I'll open it up to all of us here to really learn from you and for you to share some of the things that you've implemented, not just with the City of Toronto, but in your very long career and very successful career you have led.
Thanks, Sylvia. And thank you, Ross, Leslie, and really nice to meet you, Finley, too. So, I've known Sylvia for a very long time. And the one thing I knew about Sylvia, and it's important, and what I'm going to explain is that the more that people feel that they're valued, the more that people believe that their voice matters, the more that they feel they're part of something, that creates that movement that people need in an organization for the organization to be successful at the end. Because one of the things I was thinking about as Sylvia asked me to do this, I said, there's so much uncertainty in the workplace nowadays, right? There globally, it's not just the public sector, it's the private sector, it's corporate world. And sometimes it's so easy to forget about what matters, which is really that the employees are the center of the organization's success.
Josie, I'm just going to interrupt you for a sec because to your point, as you opened, back in the day when I started with certainty, because in the 70s, everything was for sure. You got to be 22, you got married, you got the job. If you washed your hair and shined your shoes, you got the promotion, and then the other one. And there was a career path. But fast forwarding to today, with the people I'm working with and the research I'm doing for a couple of papers, what has happened is that technology has taken over most of the job of what they call the mid-manager. And it was the mid-manager level that was largely in charge of engaging people. But that role is being reduced now to something more like administrative job or an accounting role. And so the people aren't getting what they need.
Okay. Sorry, Ross. I didn't want to cut you off, but what I wanted to say was when I was talking about the employees at the center of it, one of the things that is really important is how employees feel about their organizations that they work and who they work for and the teams that they work in. Ultimately, in my mind, provides the fuel for a high performance organization. That's really critical for an organization to have people that are vested, that people that want to be there because they feel valued. Now, the one thing Roz was talking about, which I think is so important, is the generations that we have here in the workplace, right? We know I'm considered a very mature person that retired, just so we're clear, right? And maturity for you, Finley, is a little bit older than you, just so we're clear. It's all about understanding who the people are that work in your organization. And it's not one size fits all. I don't care what anyone says. If you start thinking you're going to do one size fits all, you will lose many different people, because people at the end of the day, they're human, and people like to congregate and like to be together and like to be part of something that actually matters, right? So I just wanted to make sure that we're clear about that, the understanding the criticality of generations, understanding what makes them tick, understanding what's important, whether you're 20 years old or whether you're 30 years old or whether you're 56, it doesn't really matter, but you need to be able to fuel the organization for what the next generation that will be the workplace should actually have, and support them with that. So just want to add that as part of what Roz was saying. It's so critical, and people tend to forget that sometimes.
And what I would add to that, Josie, because I think that is a perfect description of the challenge that is not very often expressed or recognized. But there's another layer to that challenge, which actually I think that I see two. One layer is the multiculturalism, particularly in Toronto. There are people from all kinds of cultures, right? And the other is the behaviors that go along with the culture. So we have to become aware, in my view, that we're dealing with humanistic values of relating to people who are not like us. Once people who feel, it's a feel thing, it's not a think thing, feel that they're being heard, that they're being listened to, then their own capacity to express themselves, to build the trust, to ask for things, to have an opinion, is the thing that takes any team from just performing to a performance level that can go all the way to high performing. And without that, it just doesn't happen.
I also wanted to say that it takes, like, it took me as the employee, so now being the receiver end and working with Josie, there were key things that Josie did implement that made me feel that I was valued, that I wanted to do more, that I was interested, and so forth. And the question I wanted to ask Josie, because I know working with you, I do know the strategies that you've implemented, but maybe you can share with us some of the key things that you did in terms of employee engagement for the city that I know worked really well.
That's a great question. Now, I'm a leader that, like, I'm all in. Like, I am all in. Sometimes to detriment, but I'm all in because I believe in people. I believe that people get up in the morning and they want to do a great job. They get up in the morning because they want to be part of something that's bigger than themselves, right? So I've always been that kind of person. So I went from a private sector environment to a public sector, and this is where Sylvia knows me, is from the public space and obviously in the government. And one of the things that I thought was really important was to know the staff that worked with me. And the key part was that they understood that I worked for them. I support them, not the other way around. That was really important for me for them to understand how important that they were to me as individuals contributing to the bigger cause, and my job was to support them. So that was very important, and that was very, from a culture perspective, they had no idea what I was talking about. They thought I was an oddball overall.
So is that a strategy, Josie, or is that a belief system that you put into action?
I would say it's a bit of both, Ross. It's who I am, but it became a strategy for many people that used it eventually, right? Because they're like, hey, how does that happen with her, right? So the other thing too is getting to know who works with you, right? So I would go to every single place, and I had over 2,000 employees, and I met every single one. It's to understand what makes an individual tick, what matters to them. So just going back to the approach, and what Roz, there's beliefs and then there's strategies, right? But I'm one of those individuals that's very passionate and very compassionate at the same time about what I do for a living and what I did for years. So getting to know my employees, understanding who they are. I met, and it was just not staff that worked for me. I went across the organization. whether it was counselors or whether it was different departments. I met everybody, and I wanted them to know who I was, that I was there to support them. I came there because I wanted to support the bigger picture of the city. But one of the things that they wanted from me was to actually create an employee, more of an engagement with staff, because I had done a lot of that in my previous career. So one of the things that professional development and growth, understand what people need, what they need to, their skills, what they want to do, understanding where they're coming from is important because, as Rosalind said, cultures are different. And what people strive for may be different. And there's nothing wrong with being different. It's just, you want to make sure, can you support the organization? The other thing I was and sometimes to a fault, I was very clear about what it is and what it's not. There was transparency at all levels. People knew when I was coming, they knew that I was going to actually tell them the way it was in the most diplomatic and most kind way, but I was going to be very, very honest and very transparent about what the goals were, what we can and can't do, what I was going to try to do, and if I couldn't do it, I'd come back and talk to them about it. And I think people that promotes trust and engagement with an organization. The other thing I also did a lot, and Sylvia knows this quite a bit, is I really, really promoted employee recognition. Little things, not like you have a big project. Oh my God, you're wonderful. No, the small things. And it was about being kind and respectful to each other and the importance of that in a culture of an organization that's so big. Acknowledging people, praising them, it creates a motivation. I remember at the city, and this is an example because I remember this so well, the security guard did such an amazing thing for the community, and we were recognizing him for the great job he did. And guess who he brought? His wife, his kids, his mother, his father. And that is the essence of how someone feels so proud to be part of something, right? And if you can get to that level, that people like they brought their family, and I was like, I had tears in my eyes when I saw them, and I went to meet with them and all that. But just to say, that is when you create and you inspire, and people want to do their best that they can be, and that's what you look for. Not every day you're going to have a perfect day, but it's important. The other thing I was and Ross talked about this earlier, it's about inclusivity. It's about supporting cultures. It's about understanding a culture, whether it's religion, whether it's LGBTQ, is understanding and creating the space, the environment for the conversation, for the safety, a safe environment so that people can speak and they can speak their mind. So that was important for me, that all employees felt that their values were appreciated by the organization, that they were valued, and I believe that actually enhances overall employee morale in an organization. And that's what I try to do as an organization. I still want to deliver on what I had to deliver as an
Yeah, yeah.
organization. We still had a mandate. We still had outcomes. It's not about the what, it's about the how. And this is what I've been preaching as much as people could listen to me. I think they're tired of listening to me, but I remember when I did my goodbye speech to the city, I talked about like, yes, there's what and there's whys and all that, but the importance about how you do things is what people remember. That's what they feel. That's what they remember the individual, how you treated them. Because I demanded a lot, but guess what? They were right beside me because they knew that they were being valued and that I would step up just as much or even more than that they could at times because of my role. So just want to explain that the importance of these strategies and being flexible, like things happen, right? And the fact is, right, it's not going to be perfect. And I believe that you learn from mistakes sometimes, right? That it's not going to be perfect, that we allow
Mhm.
for error, that we allow to learn because that's how we become better. And we learn from, and I don't call them mistakes as much as I call them experiences, right? And we learn from that. So I was a big believer that it's important to be able to allow people because people will come forward. And if they create an environment they don't feel safe and they feel scared or they fear like retaliation of some sort, right? They're not gonna put themselves forward. So that was kind of the environment I tried to create. And obviously Sylvia could say yay or nay to that. And it was not always perfect. And when it wasn't perfect, I actually accepted the conversation to say, hey, what can I do better? And those
So,
are important things.
Josie, I just want to say, I love what your belief system and the actions you took to put that into play. I can remember after some time in the organization I was in and being just below senior manager level with a huge amount of change going on. Okay. That had everybody spooked and we didn't know and it was all mixed up. However, I've already by then had a reputation. And so because we were shifting people around, I had job openings. Well, they all lined up. Everybody wanted to come and work for me. So I had an interview process. And at the end of the interview, they always said, oh, yes, I want to work for you. And I said, not so fast. I said, I'm going to give you 3 pieces of paper. There are 10 things on each piece. The first piece are the things that I will count on you to do. The second is the 10 things that I expect you to have the ability to respond to. And by the way, I don't know what's coming. And the third thing is the authority that I will grant you or that you can earn to be more independent of me. And do you know that, and I can't remember the numbers now, but say 25% or 30% of the people who, and they said, okay, well, I want the job. I said, no, no, no. You go home, you sleep on it for 2 days, read these things, then you come back. And 25 or 30% of the people came back. And Josie, they honestly said to me, I would love to work for you. I think you're amazing, but I don't want this job that much, so I'm going to say no. And to me, that was a bingo, but it wouldn't have come that way. Like, as you said, you want to be transparent. You want to be clear. You want to be crystal clear. You want to put your beliefs in and here's what I can do and here's what I can't do. And that, in my view, in my experience, is what allows people to think for themselves and not just do this gut reaction. I'm scared. I better be good. So I love your attitude.
I have another question on that. I just was thinking as I was listening to you speak, Josie, that you're clearly an early adopter of some of the research that was emerging in the 80s and 90s about
Yeah,
the age old wisdom that if you take care of your employees will take care of your customers. Your customers will take care of your
Right.
profitability. And you can do that in the nonprofit sector because the employees are looking after your constituents or, other customers, and you're going to stay within your budgets and achieve your goals. And that research has proven that for eons. And I remember a time though when it could be really hard to get other leaders and managers to believe that enough to
right.
actually focus on the employees and let the rest of that equation play out.
Agree.
If I'm making sense. Have you run into that sort of like in your bigger world strategies and coaching? Have you run into that kind of resistance? And if you have, how do you handle it? What are your strategies?
So to both you and Roz, definitely, I have run into that. I have run into that on a regular basis, right? And it could be gender differences. It
Yeah,
could be cultural differences, right? But and this is like idealistic when I say this kind of sounds ideal. Like I am who I am. I will not change for anyone.
right.
I was built this way. My mother is one hell of a woman, and I'm still scared of her. But I was built in a way that I believe that if I if I in any way do not support and continue with the values that I believe in, then I have failed myself. Have I found that? Yes, I have found. But sometimes I find the reason for that, it has a lot to do with insecurities. People not feeling secure about who
Right,
they are, because if
right,
they actually demonstrate that they
right.
that that they care like I would care, oh my God, then they must be weak. They must not have it all together. They're never gonna execute because they're too nice, right? I know what my goals are. I always knew, but my goals were our goals. I never thought it was that mine, right? I thought it was ours, right? But I also believed that that insecurity. So what I would do with people, 'cause I think, Leslie, you asked me this question. I could see the insecurity, male or women. It could be both, right? And some of them just didn't have the experience that they would have had with leaders that taught them. And the leaders that taught them could have been really, really difficult and didn't really care about what they felt, didn't care about work-life balance or whatever you call it, right? They didn't care about that stuff. I would always try to never make it my idea because I didn't need that recognition. Because recognition for me was all of us, not me. It was the we versus the me discussion. Does that answer your question?
You're my kind of babe, Josie.
It,
That's why you and I should have met a long
it
time
does.
ago.
It's the same
I
thing you have to do in consulting. You have to
Exactly.
get people to think it's their
A
idea.
buy-in. The
right.
buy-in is, it's like the employees. You want the employees to come along. Well, you make it, they make the decision, not me at the end, right? I follow, right? And that is a difference between people. If we believe that we support our staff, not the other way around,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
we will become the better leader,
Right.
and the staff will come and they'll believe it, and they'll want to be part of it, in my mind anyway. And I've had many people that would love to work with our team because they were given the opportunity to be independent, to think differently, be innovative, okay to fail, then you get up and you move on, right? So those are the things I tried to do.
And Josie, when we did the first season of this, we talked about leadership, and now we're talking about engagement. But I remember a time when I was running a massive project and reporting to an executive vice president, big guy,
Yep.
and the project had worked, but there was more. I mean, it could be way better. We could get way more. And suddenly all these SVPs backed up on me and they wouldn't work with me. So anyway, I went to my boss and I was as mad as a rattlesnake, and I was allowed to be me. He hired me because he wanted me to be me. And he said, okay, Rosie, are you done? I said, I'm done. He said, what do you want me to do? And I said, I want you to tell them to do what I say. And there's a pause, and he leaned forward and he smiled at me and he said, well, they don't do what I say, so that won't work. It was a great big learning.
Absolutely.
And I said, well, now what? He said, look, we're there. I'll give you a new job. It's done. I said, there's more. He said, I'll give you another job. So to your point, Josie, it is, in fact, in my experience, that people are smart. They're honest. They like to work hard.
Hmm.
They like it that they got to put their head down and get a result. They love to learn, and they're eager to do that when they're treated like human beings. But when they're treated like servants, or you know, no regard for them on a personal level, it's way too scary for them to engage their own desires. It's too threatening. They need the job. They've got a family or a dog or a sick mother or
Hmm.
3 kids or whatever. And then, of course, the other thing that I lived through, I don't think it's like this anymore, but when I went into management and then mid management and then senior management, yada, yada, it was me and the boys. Girls didn't do those jobs. And so I had another particular challenge to get through. And I realized that the way that I worked, the way that I talked with people was not the way these guys talked to each other. And it was a whole new learning. It goes back to having emotional intelligence, which is based in compassion, not competition. And I'm not sure that as a culture or as a country or as organizations, Well, I am sure we're not there yet.
No, but you know what? Slowly, I do think I see, like, you know how things shift. The question is, make sure the foundation you built can't be torn apart.
Right.
Make sure it's stable, because when people leave, like I'm a big believer that, I'm replaceable for the job. Me as an individual, I am who I am, and I will always be there as an individual. But I can be replacing jobs. I can get another person to do the job, right? How I do the job may be different, but the job, we are replaceable, right? And I think that those are important things about the foundation. You build a strong foundation that can be poked, but can't be torn apart. That makes a big difference of how the future becomes for that organization. And I think, to me, that, and the foundation does not happen over a year or two.
No.
It takes decades. It takes consistency and commitment. And I always say, if I can't walk the talk or I can't walk the walk, then I am not good for that organization. So you have to be able to do that, because at senior levels or at management levels, people are watching you all the time. They're looking to see, this is what you said, are you actually doing it, right? So they look for those things. And I think leading by example, making sure that you do anything anyone else would do, making sure that you invest into people, that you listen to them, that they feel they're being heard, I think are part of foundational things that are important. So people don't get nervous when another leader comes. You don't want an organization to completely crumble because someone actually moves, right? So those are important things about the culture of an organization, to keep the employees engaged with the organization, because the organization will not work without its employees. The employees make it. The employees are the ones that deliver for the end users, right? So for me, and I think Leslie said that, because I'm a big believer: happy customer, happy employee, happy customer. That's just the way it works, right? And you need to make sure that you have a foundation that allows for it to have the positives and the negatives, the pros and cons, but it's strong enough to take anything. And that, to me, is a big part of whether an employee the employee engagement works or not in an organization too. Can it actually manage a change? Like administration, politics changes all the time, right? We have different views, right? But the staff on the public sector side, can they still continue down the path that they were going down, right? It's not that easy sometimes, right? Because you get the push and the pull, and you're constantly doing that. That's why leaders look at leaders to see how they behave, how they.
And from the studies I've done and whatnot, I can tell you that every single person knows within 5 minutes of meeting somebody whether that somebody can be trusted. They don't know it at the head level, but they know it at the visceral level.
And I agree with you.
And it's bingo. And, if you study some of this stuff, they don't even, like, people are so transparent to me because I don't even have to say anything. I just have to watch them for like 5 minutes, what they do with their face and their eyes and their mouth and their nose. So, just so you know, Josie, you got like, top grades. You are a legitimate babe. Yeah.
Well, she got all the A's for me. She asked, if I'm an A or A for the things
But
that she's done, and I say A all the way.
Yeah.
that's funny. You know
Right.
what?
And I
I
don't
am.
even know exactly, like I haven't worked with you or for you, but I know that I would or I could in a heartbeat because for three things. Number one, you know who you are. Number two, you're not afraid of me. Number three, most importantly, you're not afraid of yourself.
No,
And that means that I don't have to be afraid of myself. And I certainly don't have to be afraid of you. And that means we could have more than a word salad conversation or a cocktail party conversation and get right down the rabbit hole to what do we want and what's the risk and what's the reward and how the hell are we going to do this and who do we need to help us? And then
absolutely.
another conversation and then a strategy, bing, bang, bomb. And to your point, some cocktails every once in a while, you
For
know?
sure. For sure. I mean, when Sylvia asked me about doing this, employee engagement matters to me, but the individual matters to me a lot. Like, and that to me, no matter where it doesn't matter if it's at a organizational or whether it's my own family, right? It doesn't matter. It's being present. It's listening. It's understanding. It's adjusting. And
Right.
those are important
And
things.
it's not just about pleasing them.
No,
I mean, if anything, I think real engagement, and you don't do it in 5 minutes, but it doesn't have to take that long if you're genuine. Real engagement is about challenging them.
absolutely.
Okay. Challenging them with real questions. And then in my career, most of those real questions were, they said, well, I'm not sure. And I said, well, you got to be sure because I'm counting on you. And I got no idea how to do this stuff.
Absolutely.
Because as you become more senior and all the changes the system goes through, Josie, I didn't know. I had no idea.
I
I had
understand.
to rely on the experts.
Agreed.
Well,
I
I
mean,
like what you said earlier too, Josie, because in a very complicated world, it's always nice to be able to go back to something that's a little like simple and straightforward. And you said something on the order of, your goals are our goals are my goals. And if we can all always just come back to that and remember that that's really where we're all headed, then, maybe we can listen with understanding and maybe we can back people and maybe we can do all of these things because, yeah, it is a complicated world and we're all in this together.
I would have liked, and I'm not sure if we can maybe chat now for a little bit about the Women's Network. Like you did so much for when we
Mm.
talk about diversity and inclusion and the work that you did on promoting and enhancing women in the workplace. I
and
think that's amazing.
so I will. I'm obviously very proud of that, and we should all be proud because it's so important. And I did it at Bell when Michael Sabia said, "Hey, we need to do something about Canada. How do you do this?" So three of us got together and we did it. Came to the city, and obviously diversity, inclusion, and equity are critical. But the Women's Network, and Sylvia met me when I got there. It was a very small group, 100 people, 100 ladies. And I thought, well, there's so much potential. There's so many voices here. We've got to let these women come out and feel safe in an environment that they can speak about what they need to speak about, and how do we support them? Not to find them a job. That was never my intent, to find them a job. It was to support them in their development professionally and personally, right? So the network now, fast forward 2014, I took over the sponsorship into 23 when I left. And it was up 2,000. The network went up to 2,000 women, and it was a network not just with City of Toronto women. It actually was a network of networks. Now it became a networks of different municipalities. The province got involved, the federal government got involved, the private sector got involved, and we never lost sight of what it was. It was always about how do you support women professionally and personally as through development. And then we were very careful about we had all types, all different cultures, and we had a lot of people. But what I did, which was really important, and I think Sylvia was trying to get at that, is how do you create the movement? The movement gets created by having the conversation with, you have it with one and it
That's right.
continues, right?
That's
And
right.
it continues and it continues, right? And then you bring the executive sponsorship. I forced people to be at the table that thought like, well, it's just a bunch of women. I'm sorry. No, it's not. These are important people. So we had what they called the senior leadership team. They all supported it, but I had to make them understand the importance. These were employees of the city that needed our support. So
Right.
we had a huge group. We had signature events. We had it all. And we had people that were wanting to be part of this. They were knocking on the door from other organizations that heard about us, right? So creating the movement, creating the ability that it makes a difference in my life to be part of something, that it's something that I feel valued and I get something out of it. And we were doing this for women that women had families, so we do it during the lunch hour. We do other things we were trying to be very, very inclusive. And I think the one thing we did, we were true to who we were the whole time. We never lost sight of why we were there. And I think that's why people continued wanting to be part of something, because they felt heard, they felt safe, they felt that they were progressing in different ways. And so just to say, the creating that movement and creating that that it's inclusive, that you matter, that you're part of something that's bigger than one individual. I think it was a huge engagement. It was massive, and we continue doing that at the city, and I hope they never stop doing
It
it.
still is, and it's still
I
going, you
I
know.
even made it I actually made it for the retirees. I created my own little. I said, "Oh, can we make something else?" So it's part of it. So we've
It's
got the retirees now part of it.
you
They
know
can't get rid of me.
you have the alumni group now, so it's you're a signature event right there. There you have it.
So, Josie, that reminds me, it's sort of like a tagline. You can never be wrong if you do the right thing.
That's
In
awesome.
my eyes, I agree with you 100%.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We hope you've come away with new perspectives on leadership and the importance of empowering those around you and the difference that we can make when we lead, with employee engagement at the core. So stay tuned for more conversations with leaders who are making waves, driving change, and inspiring us all to reach new heights. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, and remember that true leadership is as much about lifting others up as it is about achieving your own goals. Take care, and we'll see you in the next episode.